Tales from the Americas. The Coming of Asín from Bolivia. There was once a chief among the Pilaga people by the name of Nalarate. Nalarate was known for his victories in war, and the men who followed him were battle-hardened warriors. Into Nalarate's village one day there came a curious stranger. When the people saw him, they laughed, for he was grotesque and ugly. Whereas other men were lean and straight, the stranger was crooked, and his belly was large. And whereas other men had long black hair, the stranger had none at all. Other men wore loincloths, but as for the stranger, he wore a fox-skin cloak over his shoulders. What kind of creature is this?" Nalarate's people asked each other. "He is not of the Toba tribe, nor of the Maracau, nor the Terreno. He must be a tribe all by himself, for where could there be other people like him?" They mocked him this way, but the stranger simply listened and made no answer. Finally, one of the Pilaga asked him, "Who are you?" "My name is Asín," the stranger answered quietly. He remained in the village and built himself a small shelter of moss and grass. The people tolerated him as a curiosity, and they treated him as a beggar. If a man caught a fish that was too small to cook, he might toss it to Asín, and Asín would take it humbly and express his thanks. But though the people didn't send Asín out of the village, they abused him in many ways. Sometimes, for sport, the men would wipe their hands on Asín's foxskin cloak, and make a great joke of it when he complained. One day Asín went to the house of the chief. Nalarate said, "Do not enter here. What is in my house that you want to steal?" Asín answered, "I only want to borrow a comb from your daughter." Nalarate laughed. "Since you have no hair on your head, what could you do with a comb?" But Nalarate's daughter overheard him talking, and he said to Asín, "Here, I will lend you the comb." Asín took it and thanked her and went down to the river. The girl picked up her water jars and followed him, curious as to what he would do with a comb. When she came near the river, she hid among the trees and watched Asín. She saw him remove his foxskin cloak. As Asín stood there in the water, he changed instantly into a handsome young warrior with long black hair, which he combed with the comb the girl had lent him. "He is handsome, and he has great powers," the girl said to herself. "I must have him for my husband." After Asín finished combing his hair, he transformed himself again into the ugly stranger, and put the foxskin cloak back on his shoulders. After he had left, the girl filled her water jars and carried them home. When Asín came to Nalarate's house to return the comb, the girl said, "Sit down with me here." Asín replied, "Why do you want me to sit with you? I'm ugly." The girl said, "Even though my father will object, I will have you for my husband." Asín answered, "Very well then, let us sit outside where people can see." The girl put a skin on the ground in front of the house, and they sat on it together, signifying that they were married. When people saw them sitting there, they said, "The chief's daughter has lost her mind. She is married to Asín." When Nalarate came, he was angry. He ordered his daughter to leave Asín and choose another man in the village, but she refused, saying, "He is my husband now." That night, Asín demonstrated his magic powers. From under the foxskin cloak, he brought out a mosquito netting to protect them from insects. He brought out food, and they ate. He brought out a beautiful red skirt cloth and gave it to his wife. When the girl's mother saw what Asín could do, she said, "I did not protest when you married Asín. What can he bring out from under his foxskin for me?" The girl said, "Ask for what you want, he will give it to you." The mother said, "It is the beautiful red skirt cloth that I want." "Take it," Asín said, and she took it. Then Asín reached under the foxskin cloak and brought out a yellow skirt cloth for his wife. He brought out ears of corn and a honeycomb full of honey, and gave them to the girl's mother, and she was grateful. She said again, "I wasn't one of those who objected to Asín's living here." Nalarate was at a drinking party with the warriors of the village. When he returned early in the morning, he said, "Get my things ready. We are going on an expedition against the Maracau tribe." Asín said, "I'll come with you." The chief replied scornfully, "How could I take you? You would be a hindrance. You're no warrior. You don't even have a horse. If you had a horse, could you even make it to go in the right direction? And if you arrived at the place of battle, what could you do but cause us shame and misery? No, stay here with the women. As for my daughter, she chose a beggar instead of a warrior. She'll starve. I'll give her nothing." Nalarate and his warriors mounted their horses and rode away. When they were out of sight, Asín said, "Now I will go." He mounted his donkey and followed the war party. When he had left the village behind, he clapped his hands together, "Tau," and his donkey changed into a fiery iron horse. He clapped his hands again, "Tau," and changed himself into a handsome young man, as his wife had seen him at the river. When night came, Nalarate's warriors made camp. Before Asín entered the camp, he changed his iron horse back into a donkey, and himself into an ugly man without hair. The war party saw him then, and they made jokes and asked, "Why did you come?" They threw him some scraps of food, which he took. After a while he mounted his donkey and rode on ahead of the war party. He spent the night alone at a watering place. He brought out food from under his foxskin, and he ate until he was satisfied. In the morning he again joined the warriors, and he rode at a distance behind them. The men joked about Asín. Then they sighted the camp of the enemy. Nalarate ordered Asín to return to the village. He said, "Go back at once before you cause us trouble and shame." Asín stopped and waited, as the Pilaga man went cautiously forward. Then he changed himself into the warrior with the flowing black hair, and he changed his donkey into the fiery iron horse. He rode fiercely past the Pilaga man into the camp of the enemy and fought with them. Nalarate's warriors stopped and watched the battle, asking each other, "Who is this man? Who is this man?" One of them cried out, "It is Asín! He has changed his donkey into a fiery iron horse." Then the Pilaga went forward to join the battle, but by the time they arrived, Asín had scattered the enemy and rounded up all the horses. They met him coming back, driving the horses before him. He did not speak to the Pilaga, but went on and left them behind. Asín returned to the village. He said to his wife, "Let us leave this village where I have been mistreated." His wife agreed. Her mother said, "I will come too." So Asín took them and his horses to a new place on the edge of a river and made a new house. When Nalarate arrived home, he found his house empty. The women of the village told him how Asín had gone away with his household. The men blamed Nalarate, saying, "It is your fault. You abused him, and he is the greatest of warriors." Nalarate was angry. He said, "If you want him for your chief, you follow him." Many of the men did. They took their families and went to the place where Asín had built his house. There they built a new village, and Asín was the chief. Nalarate decided he would destroy Asín for the grief he had caused him. But Asín learned of the plot, and he called all the men of the village together and spoke to them. He said, "There is a wind coming. It will be cold. Go embrace your houses and put heavy thatch on the roof." They went and prepared their houses. Then Asín clapped his hands, "Tau," and the cold wind came. It swept across the country. People became cold and sought refuge inside their houses. But the wind blew away the thatch from the roofs. Only in Asín's village did the roofs remain. Everywhere else, people were punished by the cold and the wind. In his own house, Asín clapped his hands, "Tau," and made a fire. People came to him begging for an ember so that they could have a fire in their houses too. To those people who were his friends, Asín gave firebrands. When his enemies came and begged for fire, he turned them away. Nalarate himself came, but Asín said, "First you merely abused me. Then you planned to kill me. Why should I give you fire?" Nalarate went away and was cold. All those who hadn't abused Asín had fire and were warm, but the others suffered and died. The rivers froze, and snow covered the land. At last the wind stopped, and the ice and the snow melted, and Asín came out of his house. He went to Nalarate's village and found the people dead. He changed the old men into Yulo birds and Mazamora's birds, and they flew away. He changed the old women into Chaya birds, and they flew away. He changed the middle-aged people into hawks and vultures, and they flew away. And the children he changed into ducks and herons, and they flew away. Asín found Nalarate where he had taken refuge from the cold in a well, and he changed him into an alligator. This is the legend of Asín, who was abused because of his appearance.